Hi, I'm Gabe. Welcome to Plumbush Farm. Today we did linear appraisal. I'm going to show you a little video clip of what our setup looked like beforehand. And then afterwards, Jenny and I spent some time discussing the future of our farm based on some of the things that we learned. Linear appraisal is a lot to take in, and there's a lot of information that we still aren't entirely sure how we're going to deal with. I'm sure this video might not be very interesting to a lot of you. It's going to be kind of long. Feel free to skip over it if you don't enjoy long videos of people talking about goats. All right, you've been warned. Here we go. Okay, we are just about ready for linear appraisal to begin. We've got the goats up here by the barn. It is ridiculously windy out here. We have a trailer, pickup and trailer, parked over here to try to give us a little bit of a windbreak. All right, we got these 4 girls ready to go first of all. They're going to be our first ones to get appraised because they have the tiniest babies, and we want them to be able to get back with their babies as soon as possible. So just talking about a linear appraisal as far as what actually happens, unless if you're deep into the dairy goat world, you probably don't really even know what that is. During linear appraisal, a representative from the American Dairy Goat Association comes to your farm and grades your goats according to a linear score system that they have. And they look at every aspect of the goat, from literally the head to the feet.
There, she left her babies behind again.
Oh, sure enough, she did. So that appraiser comes to your farm and gives you a, I guess you could say, a certified expert opinion on your goats. If you don't show, and we don't show, it is a really helpful thing to give us probably a lot of the same perspectives that we would learn from judges at goat shows if we took our goats there.
It's quite a bit more in depth than a show would be, because they're comparing each of your goats against what they call the unified scorecard. Where at a show they are comparing the goats against the same scorecard, but they're also just competing against each other.
Right.
Too.
Yeah, so with linear appraisal, they are looking at every goat, answering any questions you have about that goat. And that is really helpful because it gives you in-depth answers versus just saying you didn't make the cut at a show or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't showed. I think at shows they do gives helpful information like that too.
Sure.
But this is a little bit different thing. Now I'm inspecting all the kids.
Right. Here's the little cutie pie that was lost in the pasture. Oh, let's get her on the frame here. This little white girl right here. She was lost in the pasture last night in a bad rainstorm. And we searched for hours walking this pasture. And right here the grass is pretty short, but out toward the far end out there, it is like shoulder high brome. And after searching for hours, Jenny started looking some places other than the pasture and discovered her under our back deck. So she
tracked us.
Yeah, her instinct set her somewhere safe. That's Cascade and her twin boys, of course. Well, let's go for a walk in the pasture, shall we?
Sure.
All right. So let's see. Linear appraisal happened yesterday afternoon. Our appraiser was very kind and allowed us to stick one of these mics on him during appraisal. So we recorded his entire appraisal, which was very useful. I would highly recommend that you do that if your appraiser will do it for you. Figure out a way to do that, because we've already listened to that again, and it is just so nice to be able to hear some of the comments that he has to say.
Because there's no way you can remember or even I had stuff ready to write things down, and I thought I was being so organized, but once you're actually handling goats and bringing them in and out and stuff, it's not very easy to just keep notes by writing.
Yep, for sure. So, Jenny, what is the single one biggest thing that you think you picked up from this appraisal?
Do you mean like what we need to improve in
Yeah,
our
like-
herd, or what we should get rid of, or what we're doing right?
Well, is there any just one thing of all those things that really kind of stands out to you?
Well, one good thing is that we have some very promising yearling first fresheners.
Yeah.
And he was really encouraging about that and commended us on our strong yearlings,
Yeah.
our productive yearlings. And they got very good scores for yearlings, I feel.
Yeah. So 2 years ago, our best first freshener scored in at an 80, right?
81.
81. Okay. And this year, we had several first fresheners that scored 83,
Yes.
correct? And the doe that scored 81 as a first freshener last year, or 2 years ago,
Yeah, 2 years.
scored 88 yesterday.
Yes.
So that was nice to see that improvement. And she was our best doe. That was Ginger.
There are several things we need to work on, but most important thing is udder attachment. Rear udder height, so the rear attachments, and lateral attachments. We really need to work on. We have pretty good medials on most of our does, and that's also good. So that's a good thing. But we want to have really productive does, so we really need to work on the mammary support systems that they have or don't have. And what else? Front end assemblies and shoulder assemblies need help. We need help on that area.
Yeah.
But our best scoring doe, Ginger, did pretty well in that category, and then her daughter, Ginger's Fancy, who scored 83. She also was. He said she has one of the nicest front ends he saw
Yeah.
so far. So, I mean, she had one of the nicest front ends of all of our does, and for sure of the first fresheners.
Yes. So a buck that we used to have named Yorktown was a little bit narrow, and we have like 4 of his daughters.
Yeah, and one of them is not freshened yet.
Yeah. But that is something that seemed to carry over, like that narrowness in the rear end.
And in the front too, like
Yeah.
all throughout, they're just
Right.
more narrow, and so they're very good milk producers. Really nice does, we love them, but they are just kind of narrow
Yeah.
and didn't score terribly well as second fresheners. They scored similar to what our first fresheners did,
Yeah.
83 and 82 or something like that.
Yeah. So
But they're two of our best milkers.
yeah. Yeah, and that would be
So-
Jeanette and Kona. And they're fabulous milkers for us.
So-
But that's
yeah.
something structurally that we would like to improve as we get different bucks and so on.
Yeah, and what we might do is keep their daughters and see how they turn out and move them along eventually. So, we'll see. The appraiser said that a nice long rump translates to lots of area for the udder to be attached to underneath, which makes total sense.
Right.
So Essie has a really long rump, and she has lots of attachment in the back and in the front and the sides. And Lynx, he commented on Lynx, the buck, the father of these guys, on his length of rump. He said he has fabulous length of rump.
Okay.
So hopefully Lynx passes that on to his kids. I noticed it when I was clipping Lynx.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, I've never seen that long of a rump on any of my goats.
Yeah. Another thing that was really good to see is Essie has one of the highest, nicest arches for her udder height of any of our goats.
Yeah, she has a 37. That's really good for any goat, really.
Yeah.
It's like, that was a nice score to see.
And that's really good because that's something that we have historically struggled to have in our herd is a nice high udder.
And so Essie, the doe we're talking about, is a half-sister to Lynx. So it's nice to have those genetics in our herd. Hopefully we can use that to help improve udder attachments. But on a kid, you can kind of see how long their rump is going to be, and she doesn't seem like she has necessarily an excessively long rump. But she's pretty
also
wide.
Like, that's the size of a bunny rabbit right now too.
You look like a bunny rabbit, don't ya? Should we check your teats?
She's so cute.
Oh. Oh, she has 2 teats. That's good. Oh, it's okay. You're dirty.
These guys are so much fun.
But see her pins right here, or no, her thurls, are nice and high. That is another thing that the butterscotch line kind of struggles with, is the low thurls.
Uh-huh.
Butterscotch is so fat you can hardly even find her thurls.
Yeah.
I learned something though. I always wondered about this because I just couldn't make sense of it, but the levelness of rump is measured on the move from the hips to the pins. The pins are the 2 little bones up by the tail,
Right.
not from the hips to the thurls. Now levelness is like, and then there's levelness across too, from hip to hip and thurl to thurl.
So butterscotch, we need to talk about butterscotch. Butterscotch is our herd queen. She has been kind of the best doe that we have had since we started. And she's just she's our matriarch.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were a little bit disappointed because Butterscotch 2 years ago her overall score was an 88.
87. She scored BBEB 87, which was just a really respectable score for a little herd like ours.
Yeah, so we were really pleased with that. Now, in the 2 years that have passed, as the herd queen, she has gotten all the food she wants whenever, like during the winter time, she gets the choicest bits of hay.
She makes sure she gets them.
She makes sure she does because she pushes everybody out of the way.
Except for Ginger.
As a consequence of that, she is overweight.
And her fat, let's just say she's fat. She's very
fat.
Overweight.
Yep.
It is significantly affecting her function.
Yeah.
Pretty badly. And we knew that. It's just that, you go into linear appraisal thinking, oh, she did great last time. Well, she was a little overweight last time too. But she was young, way younger, 2 years younger.
She was younger last time. So, and her weight, to be fair, probably contributed to her only having 1 kid last time she kidded. And that kid ended up, we ended up losing that kid. We have a video about that you can go back and watch. But we ended up losing that kid because it was a head-only presentation and we had to pull it, and it did not survive that. So, her overweight, I guess what I'm trying to say is her being overweight has had a significant impact on her in several ways.
Yeah, on her fertility and her being able to deliver kids and being able to move around. And she for example, on her first score when she was 3, she was actually probably 4. How old was she? She got very good in shoulder assembly, which after, the next category after very good would be excellent. So she scored very good shoulder assembly. And this year she was only acceptable, which is quite a few knocked down quite a few pegs there. But that's what she deserved because she has so much fat under there that her shoulder blades are like opening up and just wiggling around there. And there's just fat that is stretching out her ligaments and her muscles. And she's honestly in kind of bad shape. I've been noticing getting on the milk stand. She's just been, it takes her a lot of effort to get up there.
Yeah.
Which she's only 6.
6, I think.
She
yeah.
just turned, she will be 6 in August or something, I think.
Okay.
She shouldn't have to, she should be able to easily do things like jump on the milk stand.
Right. Okay, so what was her score this time?
It was 85. There was a G and a V. And she got excellent in body capacity. That's the only.
She's got a lot of body capacity.
So,
We can throw up the score on the screen, but
yeah.
Overall she dropped, and it's likely because of her condition. One thing that we did for Butterscotch is we have put her in a pen by herself. We just got her bred a week ago. Mm-hmm. We bred her to lynx, so hoping that we can get some girl kids from that. And we put her on a diet. So she's not going to enjoy this very much for the next few weeks or month or whatever, but she's going to be in a corral eating hay as opposed to going out here in the pasture eating as much as she can of all the goodies that are out here.
Anyway, if she can't pull herself together and lose some weight and have a healthy pregnancy, we might just have to move her on. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, but you know, she's in the lineage of our does. Our Ginger, who scored really well yesterday, is her daughter. And the first freshener Pineapple scored really well for a first freshener. And then Fancy is her granddaughter. And you know,
she scored really well. Okay, so and forgive me for asking some of these questions. I should know the answers, but Pineapple and Fancy, did they score the same 83s? Mm-hmm. They were both 83. I'm not sure what the letters were, but they were both 83. So we've been tempted to do something like save a buck that we raised to breed back to our own does. We've thought about that quite a lot. After appraisal, I don't know. What are you thinking about that?
Well, so I was thinking, all my bucklings are terrible and I should not even sell one to my friend who wanted one, and this is awful. But then she pointed out to me that, you know, just because these aren't what you need for your herd and your herd's at this place doesn't mean they wouldn't benefit my herd or my does. And so, I mean, that's one way to look at it, because I have a couple bucklings out there that I do like their moms. But yeah, I think we need, if we want to improve our herd even further, we would need to probably not use them.
If we want to continue to improve our herd faster, probably the best way to do that would be to continue bringing in bucks with higher quality genetics, I guess, for lack of a better way to say it. And right now, if you're in the Nigerian dwarf goat world and you know anything about the goat market right now, is a very good time to get some awesome genetics for pretty cheap, because people are having trouble getting rid of goats. And there's opportunities out there for us to improve our herd drastically, I would say, for probably less than half of what it would have cost us even a year and a half or 2 years ago. What else was I going to try to cover?
So are you going to buy another buck, or are we just going to use lynx on everybody for 2 years, or what do you think?
Yeah, we don't know for sure if we're buying another buck at this point. We're thinking about it. That, you know, doing linear appraisal is, it's like going to a really in-depth conference and spending a day just getting so much information dumped into your brain that you honestly just have to sit and think about it for a few days afterward.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we are right now. If you're breeding two goats that are roughly at the same level of genetics, the kids are going to mostly stay at that level. You're going to every so often have some that are higher and some that are lower. And if you always select the higher ones and you keep breeding them to each other, in theory, you're going to slowly increase. But if you bring in, like if your does are here and you bring in a buck that's here, it's reasonable to assume that the kids are going to start coming up a lot quicker.
Your chances are better. And if you really delve into the linear traits and all the things that they do with data, you can try to choose a buck that's more likely to give you better rear udder height or whatever, as long as his genetics have been, what's the word?
Proven?
Proven
Tested?
and appraised
Appraised, yeah.
in the books
Right.
to be analyzed.
Yeah. You know, if you're looking at buying dairy goats, you will, and you're looking at Nigerian dwarf listings on Facebook or wherever you look at them, you're going to find that everybody says comes from great milk lines. That's just, everybody says that. And it's potentially true, you know, because you're going to have certain farms that are kind of known that they have good genetics. And it might be 4 or 5 generations back, but it's technically true. They come from great milk lines. If you really want to know for sure, though, you're going to have to stick with a herd that is on some kind of performance programs like milk test, linear appraisal,
Or even shows.
even shows. You know, in general, the goats that are the best structure and the closest to the breed standard are also going to be the best producers.
Really, it all comes down to choosing well. You know, Fancy was out of a litter of 4 kids, 2 bucklings and 2 doelings, and I studied her and her sister for a long time. And I was pretty sure from the start that Fancy was the one I wanted. I liked her front end structure, her shoulders and front legs. And I was pretty sure, but I watched her and her sister for a long time, and finally I settled on Fancy. I was like, I think that she has the best front end assembly, the best shoulders and chest and stuff. And it turned out that I chose well, I guess.
Yeah.
So I think,
Good job.
you know, look a long time at your kids and just pick what you can as your best kid from what you can go off of you can't see what their mammary system's going to look like. But you can see how wide they are and you can see how they're built. So that's my advice for choosing and breeding up. You can breed up in your own genetics. It's just,
but you also have to be a little bit ruthless about getting rid of what is not good. And that's hard to do when you have goats that you really like, just because you've raised them. Maybe they're extra friendly, maybe they've got that personality quirk that is, you know, just kind of fun, and they come right up on the milk stand for you or whatever they do. It's hard to get rid of those goats even when you know that you shouldn't be keeping them in your herd. And for probably most of the people who might be kind of into goats, maybe watching this video, you probably don't really care that much about some of these finer points that we're working to try to improve, and that's fine. If you just have a goat or a few goats to milk because you enjoy homesteading, you want to provide some milk and some cheese for yourself, that's fine. Our goal is to be able to do that for our family, but we also are really interested in trying to improve our herd, and if in the process of doing that we can help improve the overall breed, that's great. We're not kidding ourselves into thinking that at this point we're improving the breed. We're just trying to get to a point where maybe that's a possibility.
the Nigerian dwarf breed as a whole has come a long ways, I've heard. I haven't been in it much. But our herd has, for sure.
Yeah.
But, you know, improving milk production and really improving the mammary system and the udder attachments. I mean, we've gone through how many goats in our own herd, striving to keep getting that better. We could talk about Daisy because I'm kind of sad about her.
Yeah, so one of the bigger disappointments of our linear appraisal was Daisy. Daisy is a kid of Butterscotch. She's not a kid anymore. She's 3 years old, right?
Yeah.
She is a
Almost
full
3.
sister to Ginger. And we knew going into this that Ginger was probably going to be our top scoring doe. But we kind of had high hopes for Daisy because Daisy is kind of right up there with her sister, it seemed like to us.
She's just really pretty. I mean,
She is pretty.
she really is a pretty doe.
She's got that nice deep barrel like Butterscotch, but she's not so hugely overweight.
Oh, she has good dairy strength instead of being so chunky.
Yeah,
She's more elegant.
yeah. Essentially, Daisy has a tilted udder,
Yeah.
which just means that her udder is like, as the appraiser said, if you could grab the back of her udder and hoist it up a couple inches and just raise the udder height, that would do a lot for her.
That's what it looks like you need to do.
Yeah,
It makes you
yeah.
want to go do surgery on it.
Right, yeah. So her udder is just kind of forward. The teats point forward. She's not as flat on the rear end.
Yeah, she has poor rump structure.
Yeah.
She's not as wide as she should be for how big of a doe she is.
And she's not as flat as she should be back there. So
and part of
all that
was,
kind of contributes to tipping that udder forward.
And she has a lot of milk, and so her udder holds a great deal of milk, but she just doesn't have the room for it and the attachments for it.
Yeah.
And so when their udder is sloped down, they don't have the room up there to keep that udder up where it belongs. So she just scored 83. That's all
83.
she got.
Yep. So she scored right in there with our first fresheners, which is obviously kind of disappointing. Everybody, all of them, are scored against the ideal 4-year-old doe. So when you have a first freshener that's coming in at 80 to 85% of what a 4-year-old ought to look like, that's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have a 3.5 or 4-year-old that's coming in at that same score, that's a little disappointing because we'd really like them to be upper 80s if we could.
Mm-hmm.
The high score for a Nigerian dwarf dairy goat is 93. So 93% of what the ideal goat should look like, and there have been 3 of those.
Yep, and one was just this year.
And one just this year. So the Nigerian dwarf herd in general has some improving to do, and it is getting there.
The appraiser said, for example, Toggenburgs have had centuries of breeding in them. They've been around a long time.
Right.
They must have came over on the Mayflower.
Yeah, probably so.
I heard that they had goats on ships.
Well, it'd
One of my kids was telling me.
be a lot better choice than a cow, I think.
Yeah, he probably had a cow too.
Yeah.
Why did the Pilgrims bring cows over when they could have just brought goats? Wouldn't it have been smarter to just bring goats?
I don't know. Mm-hmm. So we have a couple does, including Daisy, that we really ought to just sell. But they have good enough production to earn a milk star, and if they're part of a family of goats that are all earning milk stars together, they kind of help each other out.
Mm-hmm.
And so is that a reason to hang on to a doe that we really ought to sell? Just, even if it's just to finish out the lactation, to earn her milk star and kind of improve that line's overall credibility.
I really think it is for this year because we're selling and using the milk. The milk is useful. We feed it to our animals, we use it ourselves, we make cheese, we sell it to our faithful customers. We have 2 of those who come and get milk every week. And so if they're giving us milk, and just take Daisy for instance, Butterscotch already earned her milk star last year. And, well, if ADG ever awards it, but she should have earned it. And if Daisy earns her milk star this year, then if we decide to keep one of her daughters out of Lynx, then she would have the potential to be a 3-star milker. And that also just adds to all the data that is in the CDCB database, in ADGA's information, and then, we have the potential to get our goats onto the elite list. So even if Daisy wouldn't make it onto the elite list, her daughters sure could.
Okay.
Maybe
Yeah.
her sisters. So she's helped, we're not just going to throw a goat away just because she didn't score fabulously amazing like we wanted her to.
Yeah. I mean,
doing-
there are more considerations than just that linear appraisal score.
No, for sure would not keep a buck out of Daisy
Right.
because of her tilted udder.
Right. So if Butterscotch earned her milk star, and which she did, and then Ginger is a daughter of hers. Ginger's fabulous. She's also earned a milk star.
Mm-hmm.
We have her daughter, Jeanette, and Fancy, actually 2 of those daughters, both well on their way to earning a milk star. So those 2 girls are 3-star milkers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Really? Yeah. Ginger's Fancy and Jeanette.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so, it just takes some perseverance to get, milk is really important to me. I don't want to sacrifice milk for prettiness.
Right.
But you have to have that udder structure to keep up that
Yeah,
milk.
and that's
And
the
the
thing.
rump structure.
Because I remember I used to kind of think, well, who cares what it looks like? We just want goats that produce a lot of milk. And the long and short of it is that there's a reason there's an ideal standard of what a dairy animal should look like, because on a good dairy animal, everything about them is contributing to the milk supply. And that's what all of these points of linear appraisal are looking at, is how well does the structure of this goat complement her milk producing system.
Yeah, and just take Jeanette, for example. She has quite a big udder, but I think it's going to end up looking a little bit like Daisy's, to be honest. I think it is kind of falling forward. It's so heavy when it has milk in it. And she doesn't have the structure to keep that up where it needs to be. And so, I can see her as a 5-year-old, just it not holding up too well. She does have a good medial, so that's going to help her out a lot.
Yeah,
Who's that, Sweetie's baby? Sweetie scored fairly well. She got an 81, I think.
This little girl is...
She has the family attitude.
Yeah, she does. So her mom is Sweetie, her grandma is Kona, and her great-grandma was Mocha. And they're kind of all known for being stinkers. I hope you enjoy us rambling on about goats.
Hi.
Takes a special kind of person
Tell
to
us.
enjoy that.
It does. This can be our goat podcast.
Yeah.